The Richie Allen Show, live on Talk Radio Europe, Fab Radio International, and DavidIke.com. And now, live from Manchester, England, here is Richie Allen.
Now, my next guest, I spoke about him at the beginning of the programme. I was introduced to him. I had heard of him. I'd heard his name mentioned around. But I'm on a journey of discovery myself, so it's no insult to people when I don't know too much about them, because it's very new. A lot of these areas are very new for me. But my next guest says he was born into a multi-generational satanic Illuminati family, and that he was subjected to trauma-based mind control as a child, and that in the early years of his life, he was subjected to satanic ritual abuse in a large cult setting. I mentioned earlier, he's a lecturer now and an activist, as well as presenting radio shows for the Veterans Truth Network. And I'm no sycophant, and I don't dispense praise very easily. I've been listening to one or two clips of his programme, and he's pretty good, and I recommend it. Let's welcome to the programme, all the way from the city of brotherly love, Philadelphia, Jay Parker. Jay, welcome to the programme. How are you?
I'm fine, Richie, and yourself?
I'm hanging on in there, Jay. It's not. I'm not too bad at all, my friend. It's been a lively old week. There's a lot going on in the world, as you well know. You're covering much of the same issues as I'm covering. But I'm thrilled you've come on the show. Zen introduced me to you, a mutual friend of ours, and
yes.
He had a lot to say about you. And it all stacked up when I started looking into what you've been doing, Jay, the work you've been doing. I'm going to tweet out all the details while we talk, where people can find you, your website, where they can find the programme, your Facebook page and all of that. But in the meantime, there's no better place to start, Jay, than your childhood, because as far as childhoods go, and I had a pretty traumatic one myself, but nothing like you had to put up with. You want to start there at the very beginning?
Well, the beginning of my life is actually the beginning of over 10% of Western civilization children's lives. My mother told me in 1963, Richie, that 12% of Western civilization was old religion or a dark occult. And so we're looking at a system, of course, of torture, rape, drugging, and mind control. But this is the system that controls our society. These are the people who kill their rivals, like John F. Kennedy. And they are not messing around right now when it comes to the extermination of the useless eaters. And we'll get into that a little bit. But I want to go into, well, what is the Illuminati? Basically, I try to look at this from a consciousness perspective like David Icke does, that this whole system that we're in basically runs on consciousness. And what these people do in the Illuminati, the dark occult, is this religion goes back probably before the cataclysm of 9600 BC, the great Noah flood, that Allen and Dallaire write about. But the system is of the old religion, the 12 to 15% in Western society who have for thousands of years raised their children in a traumatic mind control religion. And this creates a hierarchy and a caste system that rivals even India. When you're born into something, unless you are exceptional, Richie, you stay in your class in the Illuminati. Now, the Illuminati features the 200,000 bloodline, royalty, and entrepreneurial oligarchs, the banking class. And then there are the 12 to 15% minions. And I grew up in Arden, Delaware, a town founded in 1900, 25 miles south of Philadelphia. It was 90% pedophile, human sacrificing devil worshippers when I lived there in the 50s and 60s and early 70s. And
now, Jay, can I just jump in? That is a massive claim. I'm not saying for a second, not for a second that I don't believe it, but we're going out on mainstream commercial radio. People will say, what a claim that is. 90% of the people there were involved in doing these terrible things. Explain that. Give us some evidence.
how about the evidence of when I was 6 years old and they killed my best friend in first grade, Brandon Ploner. 10% of Arden at the time was regular people. I went to a Christian down the street where I lived, and I told him everything I knew about the cult. He went to the police, and the Newcastle County Police said to him, "Oh, we know what's going on in Arden, but we're not going to do anything about it."
Wow.
And that's because in 1930s, the police in Delaware tried to shut down the Arden pedophile cult, human sacrificing Illuminati cult, and they killed 3 policemen in rapid order. Now, my mother told me, Richie, in 63, that the woods of Arden are full of bodies. And if you go to the Arden website, they have a website, you will find that this town was founded by Joseph Fells of the Fells Naphtha soap fortune. He had a factory in Darby, right outside of Philadelphia, where he made his Fells Naphtha soap. And Darby is famous for pedophilia to this day. To this day. And I'm just saying, I know it seems to be a large thing to say, but if you talk to Zen Gardner, and he'll tell you about his travels in England, where someone picked him up hitchhiking who was an Illuminati, and he was pointing to different churches and different Freemason buildings and saying, that's a coven, that's a coven, that's a coven. It's 12 to 15% of society is Illuminati old religion. Okay, where do you think they get the people to keep this corruption going?
And under wraps. And I'm going to take great pains to say again that in no way am I challenging the veracity of what you're saying at all. I'm just mindful of the fact that we will have listeners who'll find it very hard to swallow. But of course, Jay, what's fascinating about you, for anybody who does a little bit of research into who you are and what you've been saying, is that you've been talking about this for a long time. And here we are now in 2015, when we are learning that the most senior police officers in this country were stealing evidence from evidence lockers, burying it, subverting evidence, telling witnesses and people who are making claims about this sort of thing to go away, sometimes warning them that their lives would be in danger. We've spoken at great length on this programme with former MI5 assets who've talked about children being murdered because they had been abused by the former Prime Minister of the country, Edward Heath. So nothing about what you're saying is surprising to me anymore, which is a very sad thing to say, really, because we're hearing so much about it now, Jay. And I imagine Orden, like you just said, there's probably one of dozens and dozens and dozens of places where these things were going on. When you were a child, Jay, did anybody with any sort of, I don't know, with any sort of civic responsibility or anybody who worked in authority, did anybody try and put a stop to it? Did anybody ever stand up and say publicly, look, do we realise what's going on here? We have to stop it.
Well, Richie, when I was going to Catholic prep school, I asked some friends at the Catholic prep school outside of Arden that I went to have a sleepover over at my house in Arden. And to the person, they said, oh, no, I'm not allowed to go there. That's a satanic village.
Amazing.
Okay, so everyone in the area knows what's going on. But you have to understand that with the protection of that famous French family in Delaware, and with the money and the power that the bankers have, okay, they control society. They have private armies. They have the reins of power. So they control the media, they control the police, they control the education and religious system. Okay, now people give me a hard time because, it wasn't until almost 10 years after I woke up that I started talking publicly about this. It took me 10 years to deprogram and join the shattered consciousness I had. And that's one of the things I do now is I teach people who have been through traumatic mind control how to come back from it. And basically, I have a website now called thecenterpath.weebly.com, where I go into the fact that you need to eat properly, do EFT or some other subconscious reprogramming modality, and get truth into your heart. And if you do that, even though you've been tortured into being a secondary psychopath, you can recover your mind and heart and regain your humanity. And that's my goal in life. A lot of people give me, crap for being alive, Richie. But I say, wait a minute. Fritz Springmeier is still alive, and he's writing books about the Illuminati. Kathy O'Brien, Bryce Taylor. You go on to ritualabuse.us, you can hear podcast after podcast of people standing up against these pedophiles.
I'll tell you what's interesting, Jay. So many people like you, and we had Kathy on the program, are based in different parts of the world. And you're working independently of one another. But the stories that you tell are so eerie in their similarities that, they're connected without you guys being connected. Now, I've had an email from a listener today who knew you were coming on. And he said, Jay, it's a long email. I'm going to paraphrase it. The listener's name is Douglas. He listens to the programme in Glasgow, in Scotland. And he said, Richie, in the email, basically, Jay and anybody else who's been abused, they have my undying sympathy. I can't imagine what it must be like for anybody to be mind controlled or to witness these horrible pedophilia parties and stuff like that. But he said what he doesn't get is the satanic link. Now, we've heard an awful lot about satanic paedophile parties here in England in the last few years. And a number of listeners to this programme said, Richie, Satanism doesn't really have anything to do with paedophilia. We can believe that sick bastards working in politics, working in big business and high finance, we can believe that they moved children around, that they had networks of paedophilia. But where's the satanic thing? Jay, do you want to explain that? What does it mean exactly? What is the satanic cult, and what would it have been like for you as a child? What sort of things would you have witnessed?
Well, my father was ninth generation Illuminati, and his family came from Enniskillen in Northern Ireland. My mother's family traces their satanic lineage back to the Amalekite people in the Middle East, roughly 2,000-3,000 years ago. So this is bloodline generational, but rank and file is what I grew up in. I was not a blue blood. I was not a DuPont or a Rockefeller. People need to understand we live in a sea of energy. David Icke talks about this. This is a holographic world that we live in. Consciousness, what we share with the field brings back to us. So my mother told me that the most important thing to the Illuminati is the collective subconscious. So in the bottom line, what is all this thing with the Illuminati, rape and torture of children? Okay, and I'll get right down to it. In the first 6 years of your life, you are in a hypnagogic trance. Okay, you only have 2 brainwave patterns, all right? And to have true consciousness, you need 3. So in the first 6 years, you have delta and theta brainwave patterns. You cannot differentiate any information that's coming in through your five senses. That subconscious is being built by your parents, your culture, the religion, the TV, everything but yourself. So in these cults, they know 95% of a human being's habits, decisions, and likes and dislikes will reside in the subconscious, because the subconscious transmits back and forth to the universal field 40 million bits of information a second, and the conscious mind only 4 million bits of information a second. So if you torture and rape a child in the first 6-7 years of their life and wreck their natural subconscious, okay? Let's say the subconscious is like a vinyl record being built in the first 6 years of life. Well, the Illuminati take a hot knife and just run it back and forth over the record and say, here you go, play this record. Okay?
I'm kind of following this, yeah, because I've heard David say something very similar. Is the person committing the despicable act against the child?
Now I'm going to try to get back to your original question.
Yeah.
Richie. I know I have so much information I need to share. I don't know how to do it.
Well, this is let's just say this is part one, Jay, and let's just say that you'll be invited back on the program again real soon. So don't worry about that. We'll have plenty of time in the future.
Let's get into what's the whole thing with the child raping. Okay.
And the satanic element. How is it satanic? And what would you see? What would a child witness to?
Well, let me tell you what's going on here. And I've been there. I've had my synapses and my chemistry warped by being experientially around these people in the rituals. I can see the energy of this other dimensional archonic force that these people deal with. The archons, once a person goes cold, the archons can manifest or literally take over that person. And from 1 minute, you'll see a human being, and then at the snap of a finger, you'll see radiating out of this person another dimensional entity of total evil and malevolence. And what happens when they rape these children, Richie, is they are the entity that is inhabiting their bodies, okay? This reptilian form or whatever it is, okay, feeds through sexual relations with the child, feeds on the spiritual energy of the innocent child. And they like to rape children because in the sexual act, of course, a lot of energy is being transferred. And these archonic spirit beings know how to draw the energy from the child's spirit and body to themselves. And this is why pedophilia is a sacrament to these dark occult, because they allow themselves to be possessed and used as vehicles for these entities to feed off of these children in sexual activity.
Now, Jay, that's a really important point, what you've just said there, because I put this to David in the past. You might or might not know, David is a friend of mine. We have gotten into this in the past. You just said something very important, because some listeners might be thinking, well, David Icke now and Jay Parker are given a pass to the rapist, but you're not. You're saying, and you just did say that, they allow these entities to work through them to take this energy from the child. So they know, Jay. So they are conscious that it's happening, and they know it's wrong. And they know it's wrong.
Absolutely.
Right.
But you have to understand that even in the Illuminati, when you're about 6 years old, 7 years old, you're asked whether you want to go cult or keep your mouth shut and just walk away from the cult and live your own life. And the thing is, Richie, after being raped and drugged and hypnotized and put through all these rituals, is that really a fair choice for that person? they've already had their synaptic pathways and their body chemistry totally warped by years of and this is where you need to look into the work of Dr. Bruce Lipton and what happens when you improperly raise a child in the first 6 years of life. But it's horrific damage is being done. And all these people you see on TV that come from these elite satanic families, all of them, whether you're a Rothschild, a Rockefeller, or you're just a rank and file Satanist down the street working in an auto body shop, all go through monarch, trauma-based mind control. All are raped, all are drugged, all are put through the moon matrix of mind control.
Jay, I'm just going to mention a couple of comments. Then we're going to take a very short break. So I know you want to disconnect and reconnect anyway, so we'll do that. Sure. Angela was on to say, I know Jay is telling the truth. I think so. It's grown exponentially from just 20% since the 1960s, says Angela. Mike was on to say, Arthur Cherub Spiridovich talked of the hidden hand and the Illuminati. I'd be interested to get Jay's opinion on that, says Mike. There's been an awful lot. Emma from the film Traffic is on. I'd love to talk to Jay, says Emma. Seems we are aiming for the same thing. It scares me that the UK is the same as the US. Now, Jay, I've had several questions for you about asking, are we vulnerable to possession by these archons? And I've had several questions for you about the British Prime Minister inserting his penis into the mouth of a dead pig 30 years ago. Is that relevant to ritualistic things? Loads of questions about that. Let's take a 90-second break. We'll reconnect and we'll come right back, Jay. Great to have you on. Marvellous. Right, quick break. And Jay's going to come back with us then in about 90 seconds. Loads of questions. We've only got 20 minutes from here on in, so I'll get through as many of them as I possibly can.
Do you want to know how to take your power back? How to transform your relationships, disempowering emotions and addictive behaviors into your soul's gifts of profound love and healing? Visit livingasyoursoul.com for free in-depth articles, online workshops and much, much more to find out how to live as your soul and master your power of love and healing. livingasyoursoul.com for your soul solutions.
NeonNettle.com, a new voice in alternative media. For unfiltered news at your fingertips, visit NeonNettle.com, the UK's #1 alternative news site. In association with The Richie Allen Show. NeonNettle.com.
Do you have money problems? Do you want to avoid vaccines, antidepressants, painkillers, statins, chemotherapy or worse? Sincerely, do you want to know why you've had a miscarriage? Fluoride and chemtrails calcify your spiritual pineal gland. Why don't they want you to become spiritual? Did you know birthmarks are from past lives, as are many allergies and phobias? Are you risking reincarnation by not knowing your soul contract? Do you want to get to the bottom of your spiritual experiences, including accidents? For the solution, visit healingking.com. That's healingking.com.
Welcome back to the programme. It's 25 minutes to the top of the hour. Jay, I just got that, and I will mention it to David, by the way. Jay Parker is on the line to us from Philadelphia. Now, his website is thecenterpath.weebly.com, thecenterpath.weebly.com. Massive amount of questions to get through, so we'll get through as many of them as we can. Jay, David Cameron, while he was at an elite university, hanging around with his elitist friends, was taking part in what the mainstream media would have us believe were just hijinks, silly behaviour by a bunch of drunk idiots, doing things like, as I mentioned earlier on, sticking his penis into the mouth of a dead pig. Harmless, harmless, harmless. Apparently, a lot of our listeners say no, it isn't. This shows that the guy is accustomed to rituals, secret societies. What have you made of that? What do you understand that to be about?
Well, one of the things that goes on in the Illuminati is that everyone is compromised. Everyone is photographed having pedophile sex. Okay? There's no one that does not have, hard evidence of human sacrifice, murder, and pedophilia in the cult that I knew of. Okay, and let me say this about this whole bacon lover you have as for a prime minister. Okay, I believe, and I could be wrong about this, Richie, but I believe the whole pig and penis story is just a cover for some very, very dark occult ritual that he went through, and he's being pressured and being said like, "Oh, remember this?" I really believe that you have to understand that when I was in Arden, and people would come to certain ritual gang rapings of children that I never saw before. Men would come, show up, and be photographed raping children, and you'd never see them again.
Yeah.
And I'm sure these men became politicians and corporate leaders and judges, etc. And I'm just saying that, if you think David Cameron is his own person, you're not studying what David Icke and other people like Mark Passio and myself are trying to teach people. I mean, this whole system in the world is run by a handful of private families that you don't even know their names.
Spot on,
if you know the person's name, believe me, they're not the ones calling the shots.
Absolutely, Jay. Nobody could argue with that, I don't think. Not anymore, I don't think. I'm going to start kind of going through some of these questions, and we will get you back on the programme again in the future. I have no doubt about that, in the near future. Number of listeners asked me to ask you about monarch mind control and the music industry. Is it promoted in the music industry, Jay? And is that why you see the symbolism of monarch butterflies all over pop stars' videos?
Absolutely. If you want to know about Hollywood, go to FriedmanTV.com. Friedman Fly and Jamie Hanshaw do excellent work about the whole Hollywood monarch mind control system. I mean, Madonna, Britney Spears, they're all mind control slaves. This society, I'm trying to say to you, culture, as Terence McKenna said, culture is not your friend. As Plato said, culture is not your friend. I'm paraphrasing.
Spot
you
on.
have to understand the status quo gives you your subconscious, which is the antithesis of your true spirituality and your true self-empowerment. It's up to you as an adult to learn EFT, to learn Psyche, to reprogram your subconscious and start walking in your innate spiritual power. And this is what David Icke, this is what Mark Passio, this is what Michael Tazarian, and the revolution in consciousness has begun. Okay, and we're trying to get people to understand the work of Bruce Lipton and the work of Dr. Joe Dispenza, and go to my website and take a look at the consciousness videos I have up there.
Absolutely right. I'll give the website again. It's thecenterpath.weebly.com. Folks, go on there.
If you want to know more, Richie, and I'm sorry.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
If you want to know more about, the Hollywood mind control system, Vigilant Citizen does some excellent breakdowns of Hollywood MTV rituals and things like that.
Jay, we're just getting a little bit of that interference that you thought you might have because your Skype plays up. So let's just disconnect and reconnect again. That's there's nothing sinister to that. Jay said to me beforehand that he's had connection problems with his computer and it's affecting the sound quality on Skype. So I'll dial him back up there and hope that it's gone. It's Jay Parker on the line to us from Philadelphia. Is a Truth Weebly thecenterpath.weebly.com. thecenterpath.weebly.com. I've just tweeted it out. Jay, welcome back. We just had a little bit of interference on the line there.
Happens all the time.
We're still getting it as well. Yeah, we're still getting it as well. I don't know what that is, Jay. We're still getting you sound like a Dalek from Doctor Who there, just temporarily. So that all we can do really is disconnect one more time, try it again. Failing that, for the last 15 minutes, I'll give Jay a ring on his mobile. Ringing Aaron there for a second. Let's try it again then. Yeah, he said he would have problems on the Skype. Right, Jay, are we back?
I hope so.
There you go. Yeah, you sounded like a monster from one of those old 50s sci-fi movies there.
Yeah, well, it happens. I have a very old computer.
No worries. Right. Now, I'm going to just get into some questions. Stephen Higgins.
So the answer of that question is, if you want to know about Hollywood mind control and the music industry, I would recommend Vigilant Citizen. I would recommend Freeman Fly and FreemanTV.com. And you'll get fast, accurate research about the whole system. On that particular subject. Great stuff, Jay. Good recommendation. Stephen Higgins. Richie, I fear I know the answer, but please ask Jay about the countless thousands of missing children around the world. Jay, I know a little bit about this as well, but the listeners don't want to hear my opinion. They want to hear yours. This is the least covered, most important subject in the mainstream media. There are tens of thousands of children in every country in Europe and around the world that go missing on an annual basis, and there's zero coverage about it. What about those children, Jay? What's happening? Well, the number one missing and exploited children's missing and exploited website in America places the missing children in America at 800,000 per year. The FBI does not keep records of how many children in America go missing, because the scandal, if it ever got into the collective consciousness of most people, they would not believe that 800,000 children go missing a year, but that's exactly what's going on here. How many are ending up in pedophile rape rooms and snuff films? I would say at least a quarter of that, at least 250,000. And how many end up as slaves in underground factories and are shipped away to the Sultan of Brunei? Quite a few, I'm sure.
Yeah.
I'm just saying it's a huge scandal.
Devastating, isn't it?
It's a huge scandal. And this whole thing of the Amber Alert system and all that, that's just blowing smoke right up you. Okay? Because when the elite want your child through, Health and Human Services or whatever, if they want to steal your kid, they'll do it.
Jay, one of the things we get into on the program regularly is the forced adoption scandal. And again, if listeners want to hear more about that, there's a number of interviews on our YouTube channel with Emma Abitson, with other mums, with Vicky Haig in France, and it's incredible, that particular subject and how it ties in with what Jay is saying. Sean was on to say, Sean McDonald, Richie, I know you touched on it, but why haven't the collective group of knowledgeable guests like Jay, like Jordan Maxwell, Stuart Swerdlow, etc., gathered even their power of information and maximised their impact? Well, they have, Sean, because they regularly talk to one another. They appear on programmes like this and put their information online. So they have. I don't know what you mean by collective. Maybe a collective book or a collective talk. I don't know. Maybe Jay has an opinion on that.
Well, it's amazing synchronistically why you say that, because Jordan Maxwell is going to be at Free Your Mind Conference number 4. And also, I believe Stuart Swerdlow will be making his second appearance to the Free Your Mind Conference. It's in April in Philadelphia. This is the 4th year it'll be on, and there are videos on the web of the first 3 Free Your Mind conferences, and a lot of great information and speakers. Mark Passio, Freeman Fly. You need to become educated, but you also need to realize that the number one thing that the Illuminati do not want you to do is wake up to your own consciousness. So I recommend, and it's my new paradigm page, you need to learn a subconscious repatterning modality, whether it's emotional freedom technique or Psyche, something, and you need to write down any traumas or beliefs that you do not wish in your mind, and you need to tap on them and change your mind. If we start broadcasting peace and freedom from our subconscious, because my mother said the most important thing to the Illuminati is the collective subconscious. And this is what I'm telling people, that Dr. Bruce Lipton and Dr. Joe Dispenza are right on when it comes to the ramifications of consciousness in the effect of this holographic universe we live in. And we are right now talking about, when this person asked about why don't we all come together and work more together? Well, the Free Your Mind group is discussing amongst themselves right now of starting a Free Your Mind network, so that people who have been at the conference will have a radio show once a week on our network. And we'll see where that goes.
Yeah, it's good, Jay. And it ties in with two questions, one from Aaron and one from Emlyn. And the questions were basically, do you think the system can be brought down? It is far-reaching and well-organised, but how do we bring it down, Jay? There will be people listening to you tonight and they will say, okay, I agree with Jay. I agree with him. This is going on. It's terrible. But they will say, and I know they will, Jay, I'm not saying this now, but I know some people will say this. They will say, this sounds lovely. We have to understand who we actually are, that we are pure energy having this experience on Earth, that is the holographic universe. It's all very well to say that, but how do we use that knowledge to bring these psychopaths down, Jay? How do we do that in practical terms?
Well, this is where John Lash talks about the Calico War Party. And I certainly know a lot of psychics and people who are actively now forming groups to use their spiritual energy and go head-to-head with these warlocks and witches. This is no joke. You have to understand they're doing all these rituals around major ley lines and energy node points on the planet. Arden and Rose Valley are situated within like 10 miles or so of each other on different sides of the Arcadian ley line, so that when both communities are engaged in massive pedophile or human sacrifice rituals on certain satanic holidays, okay, that energy is being poured into the Earth grid energy field through the ley line system. And they know all about these nexus points of the ley lines and manipulating the vortices. 91% of our DNA is shut off right now, Richie. And that's because we're living in a sea of low consciousness. And to break up the log jam and to break the ice, we need individually to start deprogramming from what we were programmed with in the first 6 years of life and start putting truth and natural law into our conscious and subconscious minds.
Jay, I wonder.
That's the way it's going to go. Why does Tavistock Institute spend billions of dollars steering society? Why does the Ford Foundation, the Rockefeller Foundation, spend billions of dollars manipulating human consciousness? It's because if consciousness was allowed its natural path, there would be no Illuminati.
And on that, because we're going to run out of time very quickly.
I know.
We'll do it longer next time. We'll go for a longer show, Jay. Are basic steps important, Jay? I mean, you talked about Tavistock there, you talked about Ford, what the massive corporations are doing. So basic steps, Jay, like just switching off the television, for example. Just saying, right, that's it. I'm going to switch off the television. I'm not going to watch the bread and circus routine anymore. I'm going to do a little thing like that. We're going to sit down with one another at dinner time, and we're really going to sit down and we're going to talk to one another and love one another and be in one another's company. Are little steps like that, are they valuable, Jay?
Absolutely, Richie. How do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. It seems like we have to move a mountain, but as Allen Ginsberg said, it's a giant mountain of BS. But if each one of us deals with our spoonful, it'll get done. The job will get done. Don't look at it like the giant mountain. Just look at it like, okay, I have my spoonful of BS I have to deal with. And when you change your consciousness, when you go in to your subconscious and free yourself from the negative patterning that was given to you by this satanic system, and it is a satanic world system, any system that believes in war the way this system believes in war. And let me tell you, war is nothing but illuminati human sacrifice. They couldn't get the people to march up to the temples, the pyramids anymore, and rip their hearts out. So they figured another way to have human sacrifice, and it's called war. These people make these wars up. This is all a fraud. This entire system is a fraud. And you're in trouble now, the human race is, because we have Fukushima, the radiation is out of control, we have geoengineering, we've lost 40% of the ozone layer. We've got problems, and we need to get back to source. We need to get back to our true spirituality, because we're collectively going to need that power to fix the damage that's been done to this planet.
Jay, we're going to leave it there for now. Jay's website again is thecenterpass.weebly.com. On there are links to Jay's radio program on the Veterans Truth Network, which is Sunday at 9 p.m. Eastern Time. I've listened to bits of previous programs, and it's fascinating stuff. Exactly like you hear the man tonight. He is exactly as he sounds. He's genuine and he's sincere. Jay, I will pass on your message to David. That's a promise. I'll be in touch with you again in the next few days, and we'll arrange for you to come back on the program again when I come back from a short break that I'm taking next week. But thanks for coming on. Fascinating, important, vital information. And big thanks to Zen Gardner for connecting me to you, my friend. Come back again real soon.
I just want to thank you and Maria Heller and Zen Gardner and Jack Blood and Mark Passio and the people who are out there selflessly and for no money pounding away at the evil oligarchy.
Absolutely, Jay. Well, we don't do very much. The researchers and the people who've been through it and seen it, they're the people putting their lives on the line by getting this stuff out there. All we do is report on it. But I thank you very much for saying that. Look after yourself there in Philadelphia. Let's talk again real soon. But bye for now. Thank you, Jay.
Thank you, Richie.
Right, that was Jay Parker on the line to us there from Philadelphia. Once again, it's thecenterpass.weebly.com. I've tweeted it twice. You've got it there. Massive amount of tweets and emails coming in on this subject. Sorry that we couldn't get to them all, genuinely, but we will get them back on the programme again in the future. So to Shona and to everybody else who sent in questions there, and Angela, we'll get them on again in the future and we'll talk about this. It's not for everybody. And I will have gotten emails, and I have gotten emails from people who just don't buy into this. They don't see it. They don't believe in it. And people are entitled to believe in what they want to believe in. It's as simple as that.